Hello, my name is Tom and welcome back to my channel. Before I start today's video, I want to apologise that my upload schedule's gone a bit... I haven't been able to record on the same day or edit on the same day, and my last video, which was my vlog, took me an absolute eon to edit. So, sorry about that. But I wanted to sort of restart again with a relatively short video, and that is going to be a subscription box unboxing. And to clarify before I start, this is not sponsored, these are not gifted. I've bought these with my own money and I quite enjoyed them so far, so I wanted to share them with you. The box that I'm looking at today is a box of stories. A box of stories is a book subscription box that sends out books that would otherwise have been shredded. So if a bookshop overbuys a particular title or a publisher overprints a particular title, the bookshop might return them, the publisher may not distribute them, and in that case they get shredded and recycled. If you're like me and you buy second-hand books, you may sometimes find that your books have a mark, either a dot or a strike from a marker pen on the edges of the pages, usually at the bottom of the book. That means that it's a bookshop return. So it's a book that was bought by a bookstore from a publisher, didn't sell and was sent back. So sometimes they'll get sent to discount distributors, sometimes they'll go into the second-hand market, and other times they'll be shredded. A box of stories takes books that would otherwise be shredded and distributes them to its subscribers. As a result, the books in these boxes end up being quote-unquote unpopular books. They're books that didn't find their market when they were first printed and were considered surplus. So you end up with some unusual books, some authors that you may not have heard of, and that's why I like these boxes, because you find new books and new authors that you probably haven't heard of elsewhere. I'm on the cheapest subscription that a box of story has, which is one box every 4 months. And because there are 4 books in each box, that works out to 1 book a month. And I've just received my 3rd box from them. I've kept all of the books from a box of stories in their boxes so far because they have a survey service so that you can say what you thought about the books that you received and they can tailor what they're sending to you. However, after looking, it seems that these questionnaires reset every box. So now that I've received my 3rd box, I can't review any of the books from my 2nd box, for example. So the point of keeping them together is a bit null, but seeing as I've kept them all together, I thought it might be nice to show you all of the books that I've received from a box of stories. And also, I hope it will encourage me to read at least one of the books so that I can do the questionnaire about it, because as you might have guessed, with all of them still being in the boxes, I haven't read any of them yet. So I'm going to start with 2 boxes that are already open and go through what's in them. Because of the nature of the books that a box of stories sends you, I don't have much to say about each of them, so it's really going to be first impressions. Okay, so onto the first box, I think. Okay, so the one on the top here, if I remember correctly, is the one in this box that I think probably isn't going to be for me. And it's called Ideal Love by Alice Burnett. It's a really nice French flaps edition and I quite like the cover. After an argument with her husband Giles, Venus Reese is left devastated by his sudden death. But when she discovers that he died of a treatable genetic condition she knew nothing about, she is haunted by the thought that he didn't love her enough to save himself. As time passes, Venus looks set to be trapped between grief and distrust forever, until she meets the shy, good-looking and seemingly ideal Alex. It sounds almost like One Last Thing Before I Go, but from the other perspective, from the other point of view. And I had a couple of issues with that book, but none of them were the concept. So this one would be an interesting read. I tend not to read books that are really focused in the domestic, but this sounds like a good one to try. Okay, the next one looks much more my speed, and I think it's actually an author that I've heard of. Next, we have Walk in Silence by J.G. Sinclair. Ciara Lynch is a lawyer who's no stranger to trouble, but having only just landed in Albania on the trail of a kidnapped boy, she's already up to her neck in it. She thought money would help her, but in a brutal underworld where anything can be bartered, trust, loyalty, even lives, his kidnappers have other ideas. They want the freedom of one of their gang members, a man who Ciara is about to help bring back to trial in the UK. A man who once put 3 bullets in her chest. I wonder if this is part of a series. Okay, we have a by the same author list, which includes 2 other titles, 70 times 7 and Blood Whispers. But it doesn't look like it is part of a series, which is nice. A lot of the thrillers in this sort of vein are parts of really sprawling series. And although you tend to be able to pick them up in the middle, it can be a little bit disorienting, and it isn't my favourite thing to do. So it's nice to have what I hope is a standalone thriller of this style. I didn't recognise any of the other books by this author, so I may be getting confused. I'm wondering whether I've read from another Sinclair before. I'm not sure. Okay, this next one looks very indescript, so I don't really have any first impressions of it. It's called All That Was Lost by Alison May. In 1967, Patience... Is that Bickersley? I'm going to go with Bickersley. In 1967, Patience Bickersley is a teenager who discovers a talent for telling people what they want to hear. 50 years later, she is Patrice Lee, I think that is. She has very difficult to pronounce names. Patrice Lee, a nationally celebrated medium, but cracks are forming in the carefully constructed barriers that keep her real history at bay. Leo is the journalist hired to write Patrice's biography, struggling to reconcile the demands of his family, his grief for his lost son, and his need to understand his own background. Leo becomes more and more frustrated at Patrice's refusal to open up. Because behind closed doors, Patrice is hiding more than one secret, and it seems that now her past is finally catching up with her. I didn't get any of that from the cover, did you? It sounds kind of The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, is it that one? Yeah, there's a biographer and there's someone with secrets, yeah. It reads kind of like she's a fraudster. I don't know, I don't think this one's for me. Okay, and this next one also looks like it's a bit of a hit or miss one. We have Estoril, a war novel by Dejan Tiago-Stanković. Stanković. The C has an accent over it, and I don't know what to do with that, I'm sorry. Set in a luxurious grand hotel just outside Lisbon at the height of the Second World War, Estoril is a delightful and poignant novel about set in a luxurious grand hotel just outside Lisbon at the height of the Second World War. Estoril is a delightful and poignant novel about exile, divided loyalties, fear and survival. The hotel's guests include spies, fallen kings, refugees from the Balkans, Nazis, American diplomats and stateless Jews. The Portuguese secret police broodingly observe the visitors, terrified that their country's neutrality will be compromised. Okay, what does the hardcover look like? Oh, I quite like the spine on that one. I tend not to read World War novels. I did read one sort of mid last year. What was that called? I don't remember the title, but that one was a bit hit or miss as well. But I also don't think I've ever read a World War book that was set outside the UK either. I'm wondering in which ways this book is going to be delightful. Is it going to try and be funny? I don't know. But yeah, so that's all the books in the first box. Okay, let's go on to the second box. So again, it's another one that I've already opened. And if I remember correctly, this one looked a bit more promising in terms of my tastes. The first one I've picked out is Diane Jeffries' Those Who Lie. Emily Clean doesn't know she has killed her. That doesn't bode well. I think there might be a typo on the back. Emily Clean doesn't know she's killed her husband until the day of his funeral. At first, signs point to a tragic accident, yet as Emily pieces together the events leading up to the accident and her own memory loss, she begins to suspect that her husband's death may have been the result of more than a terrible twist of fate. So we have talk of psychological scars and trauma. This does seem, again, a more domestic thriller. Domestic thrillers are quite hit or miss with me. Again, I think I've said before that I'm very fussy about thrillers, and the memory loss trope isn't one I always get on with. Okay, I've just seen a very cool looking book, but I'm not going to pick that one up next. I'm going to pick up this one. This is Sweet Thames by Matthew Kneale, author of English Passengers. Have I heard of that? Possibly. In the summer of 1849, cholera threatens the city and the people of London. The authorities send millions of gallons of sewage cascading into the Thames, for many Londoners the only source of drinking water. Joshua Jeavons, a young and idealistic engineer, embarks on an obsessive quest to find the cause of the epidemic. As he labours in a fog of incomprehension, his domestic life is troubled by the baffling coldness of his beautiful bride Isabella. But when she suddenly disappears, his desperate search for her takes him to the netherworld of slum dwellers, pickpockets and scavengers of subterranean London. This sounds really cool. Historical thriller with a science element. Yes, please. I'm surprised I forgot about this book actually, because that sounds really interesting. I definitely want to get to that one. Shall I go for the cool looking one? No, I'm going to leave that till last. What's this one? Oh, it's huge. Melissa Hall's The Summer Villa. Villa Dolce Vita, a rambling stone house on the Amalfi coast, sits high above the Gulf of Naples amidst dappled lemon groves and fragrant tumbling bougainvillea. I remembered a plant word. Kim, Colette and Annie come to the villa in need of escape and in the process forge an unlikely friendship. Now, years later, Kim has transformed the crumbling house into a luxury retreat and has invited her friends back for the summer to celebrate. But as friendships are rekindled under the Italian sun, secrets buried in the past will come to light, and not everyone is happy that the three friends are reuniting. Each woman will have things to face up to if they are all to find true happiness and fully embrace the sweet life. I'm going to say it, Mamma Mia, just without all the blokes. The cover of this book looks really romancy, but based on what I've just read, it sounds like it's not, and that's really nice and refreshing. I hope that the writing is as floral as the first paragraph of the blurb was. I really like reading that sort of prose that just tumbles. And it would have sounded a lot better if I could say bougainvillea properly. Yeah, no, that's a nice one. Also, it is huge. Why is it so big? It's sort of hardback size, but paperback. I think it's going to have to go on the bottom. And now this next one looks really cool. We have The Plotters by Unsum Kim. Rhys Seng has always been a hitman. he receives his orders from the plotters, the shadowy bosses pulling the strings, and follows them to the letter, until the day he decides to break the rules and lets a victim die how she chooses. From then on, it seems his every move is being watched. Have the plotters decided his days are numbered? If he doesn't even know who they are, how can he possibly hope to escape them? Okay, we have a Korean gangster thriller. I can't see a translator. Oh, yes. Translated from the Korean by Sora Kim Russell. So this is originally a Korean text. It looks nice and concise, actually. Oh no, the font is tiny. The premise of a gang member gone awry being hunted has been done before, but the angle is quite interesting, so if I can get past how small the words are, I think this one would be cool to read. And that's the last one in the second box. Okay, so that's the ones that I've opened already. It's time to open the new box. The other thing I don't think I said is that with every 3 boxes, a box of stories sends you a little extra something. And if I read the email right, that means that this box will include 5 books instead of 4. Oh, I'm excited. It has a snowman on it. That's how long I've had this box before making this video. Okay, on the top I see a hardback, and I also see a sticker that says, "For fans of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo." That applies to me. What is this book? Eyes Like Mine by Sheena Kamal. Nora Watts is about to discover that you never really put your past behind you. Troubled, misunderstood, and with more than enough problems of her own, Nora doesn't want to get involved. But then she sees the photograph. A girl, a teenager, with her eyes. How can she turn her back? Okay, it looks like we have a lost daughter narrative. But the thing that is similar with The Girl from the Dragon Tattoo by reading the synopsis is the setting. We go from the streets of Vancouver to the snow-capped mountains and the Canadian wilderness. So yes, a very bleak setting. I struggle to see in what other ways it could be like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I tend not to trust these recommendation stickers anyway. But if I'd seen this in a bookshop, I probably would have picked this up. I'm a sucker for covers like these. I love wilderness stories, threatening environment. This looks like it's going to be full of dread, and I really hope that it is. And yes, there are 5 books in this box. Which one? Let's go with this one. We have Munich Airport, a novel by Greg Baxter. An American expat in London receives a piece of news that is nearly incomprehensible. His sister, Miriam, has been found dead in her Berlin flat from starvation. 3 weeks later, the man, his elderly father, and an American consular official find themselves in an almost unbearably strange place, a fog-bound Munich airport where Miriam's coffin is to be loaded onto a commercial jet. Munich Airport tells the story of these 3 people over those weeks, waiting for Miriam's body to be released, sifting through her possessions, puzzling over the mystery of her awful death, and trying to possess a share of her suffering, her yearning and her grace. It is a novel for our time, a work of richness, gravity, and dark humour. Ooh, I like the sound of this. When I saw the cover, I was thinking The Terminal vibes. Ooh, no, I like the sound of this. I personally find airports to be really creepy places, and I think that's to do with a specific Stephen King short story that if you've read, you'll know what I mean. But no, that sounds really cool. Wow. I wish I'd opened this box sooner. This one looks to be a complete contrast from the last book, so I'll go through this one next. Sunny Days and Sea Breezes by Carole Matthews. Jodie Jackson is all at sea in every sense. On a ferry bound for the Isle of Wight, she's leaving her London life, her career and her husband behind. She'd like a chance to turn back the clocks, but she'll settle for some peace and quiet on her brother Bill's beautifully renovated houseboat, Sunny Days. But from the moment Jodie steps aboard her new home, it's clear she'll struggle to keep herself to herself. If it isn't Marilyn, who cleans for Bill and is under strict instructions to look after Jodie, then it's Ned, the noisy sculptor on the next-door houseboat. Ned's wood carving is hard on the ears, but it's made up by the fact that he's rather easy on the eyes. Bustled out of the boat by Marilyn and encouraged to explore with Ned, Jodie soon delights in her newfound freedom. But out of mind isn't out of sight, and when her old life comes knocking, Jodie is forced to face reality. Will she answer the call or choose a life filled with sunny days and sea breezes? Well, that sounds all very pleasant. I love stories with a moving to the country narrative. As someone who is definitely a country bumpkin and has never lived in a really city, I always enjoy watching how characters with the opposite experience react to things. This sounds like a lovely light read. I don't really think it's the time of year for this one now, and it doesn't look particularly dense either, so I'm wondering if this will be a good anti-slump book. I am in a bit of a reading slump at the moment, but I don't think that this is the book that I need right now. But yeah, that looks promising. I'm going to go with this one now. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced this name. Ilaria Bernardini. Bernardini. Ilaria Bernardini. The Portrait. An internationally renowned writer, Valeria Costas, has dedicated her life to her work and to her secret lover, Martin Akla, a prominent businessman. When his sudden stroke makes headlines, her world implodes. The idea of losing him is terrifying. Desperate to find a way to be present during her lover's final days, Valeria commissions his artist wife to paint her portrait, insinuating herself into Martin's family home and life. This really doesn't sound like my cup of tea, I'm afraid. It reads like a domestic mystery. It doesn't look as though it would be especially thrilling. The back reads as if it's just going to be two women talking about a dying man. I'm not convinced that I'll find this especially engaging, which is a shame. The last book in this box is House on Endless Water by Emuna Elon, I think. I love this cover. Renowned author Kneale has always known that his mother escaped the Nazis from Amsterdam, but it is not until after she has died that he finally visits the city of his birth. There, watching an old film clip at the Jewish Historical Museum, he sees a woman with a small child. It is his mother, but the child is not him. So begins a fervent search for the truth that becomes the subject of his magnum opus, revealing Amsterdam's dark wartime history and the underground networks which hid Jewish children away from danger, but at a cost. Okay, we have a post-war fiction book. I tend to prefer the post-war stuff to the narratives that actually take place during the war. They're a bit more personal focused in my experience. Again, this sounds like it's going to be a very informative narrative. I feel like I'm going to learn a lot when I read this book. And that's all. That's the last one from this box. And there we have it, another big pile of books for me to put away. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books or from any of these authors. I don't think there's a single one that I've heard of before, which is lovely. That's the main reason I'm subscribed to this box, is so that I can find lesser known authors that I enjoy. Do you or have you subscribed to a box of stories? Let me know what your experiences were as well. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time.